Hi, HR Nation, it's Chris Rainey. Welcome to episode 53 of HR Leaders, the show where we interview today's most successful and innovative HR practitioners 5 days a week. Today, we're joined by Pete Baker. Pete is the Global Vice President of HR at Damco. Pete, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm great. It's great to be here, Chris. Thanks for inviting me.
Thanks for coming back to me. Pete, tell our listeners a little bit more about yourself personally, and then your journey to where we are today.
Sure. Well, as you can probably guess from the accent, I'm originally from Australia, but haven't lived in Australia for quite a long period of time. I started my career mostly with Procter & Gamble and spent 17 years at Procter & Gamble. And really, for most of that, actually, I was in sales. So the traditional sales career path, driving around, selling initially Procter & Gamble products to independent grocery stores and pharmacies, and then gradually leading up and leading a sales team, and then eventually leading one of the grocery channel customers in Australia. And after about 12 years of doing that, I had a desire to try something different and got an opportunity to spend a very brief, what was supposed to be a very brief broadening assignment in HR. And
always starts out to be a brief thing, and you never
exactly.
know.
It was a 6-month assignment to help with an integration of a company that we just bought. And anyway, that turned out to be very successful. And then I got really the chance to make it a permanent career. And so I guess I drifted into HR via the line management. And I hope that's always given me a little bit of a view of what it's like to be a customer of HR. And I've tried to bring that with me throughout my career as I've moved forward within HR. I moved to Singapore in 2006, really when I really finally moved properly into HR, supporting the beauty care business for Procter & Gamble in Asia. I was the HR leader there. And that was a great role and a great opportunity to lead the function regionally. And then in 2011, I got the call to join Maersk Line, and Singapore is a shipping city, and we were living in Singapore. We were trying to make our home there, and so when you get a call from the biggest shipping line for the biggest HR job in Asia Pacific, it was a great opportunity. So I joined as the head of HR for Maersk Line in Asia Pacific. And honestly, Chris, I expected that role would last a very, very long time. And through a variety of restructures, I ended up in Copenhagen in Maersk Line headquarters, and spent a couple of years there, including in a role as the head of learning for a couple of years, which is a great way to kind of build a bit more functional muscle. And then 18 months ago, I moved down here to the Netherlands to be the global head of HR for Damco. So Damco is part of the Maersk group. So it's a pretty appropriate and normal way of rotating talent through the group that I got the chance to move from a great role in Maersk Line up to be the number one head of HR here in Damco. And,
wow.
So that was 18 months ago. Came down to the Netherlands, and I've obviously been attempting to contribute then to the business and to the organisation since then.
Well, you're settling in now because you told me you got the bike. That's already the first.
Exactly right.
The most important step if you move to the Netherlands, buy a bike. How soon after you got there did you have a bike?
Well, actually, I did, because I was living in Copenhagen before then.
Oh, okay.
So actually, the Danes are also about bikes. But
okay.
So I applied the same model. What I learned in Denmark is there's no such thing as bad weather. There's just bad clothes. So you ride your bike
no matter
all
what,
throughout the year,
rain or shine.
Exactly. And so the Netherlands is a little bit more rain than Denmark, but not nearly as cold.
Well, it's amazing to hear your journey, and it's funny, as I say on most episodes, I think 90% of the HR leaders that join us never planned to be in HR. Very rarely did someone go, you know what, I'm going to choose HR as a career. And I think the ones that come from a different function in the business and understand the customer are in a lot of cases more successful, because they understand the business outside of HR, and they then come in and they can really make that connection. So I'm sure that's really helped you on your journey. as well. What is it about HR, do you think, that kept you? You know, why, how, because obviously it was supposed to be a side, something on the side, you know, as a new focus. And now you know, years later, you're still in it. What about HR really drives
Yeah,
you and makes you get up in the morning?
I think it's really around capability. I realized that what I was passionate about was building capability. And so when I first moved into HR, even though for a short period of time, and I realized that there was ways that we could improve the capability of our employees, both to be successful in their current role as well as prepare them for their next role. And I realized that there's really this mix between what's great for the business as well as what's great for people. And that's, I think, what I love about HR is trying to build people's capabilities so that people enjoy their work more, that they contribute more, but also that the business ends up deriving and benefiting from those skills. And so I think, you know, on the conceptually that really appeals. Now, of course, the longer you stay in HR, you realize it's not all about the fun things of building capability, and there's a significant element of restructuring and downsizing and all kinds of other elements that have certainly been part of my career ever since I moved into HR. But I would really say, Chris, that in the end, even at the end of a restructuring, most people, if you manage it well, end up in a better situation than they were before. And that's really my goal of any restructure or any offshoring or outsourcing effort, is to make sure that people have the tools and the skills to end up in a good role, even if it's no longer within our own company.
Yeah, amazing. Obviously, you've been in quite interesting organizations. Could you share a project or transformation that you've been through or been part of that you're most proud of, that stands out?
Well, I think, probably in where we are in Damco right now is actually a really interesting place. And so we're right knee deep in the middle of a transformation, because the Damco is part of the Maersk conglomerate. Maersk is the biggest shipping company in the world. And actually, there's been a lot of questions for many, many years around whether Damco would remain part of Maersk, whether we would be sold off, or you know, really a lot of uncertainty around the future of the company. But it was really just over a year ago that the Maersk conglomerate restructured and declared that we want to be the global integrator of container logistics. And so as a result, in Damco now we have a really strong role to play as part of that, part of the Maersk group. And so we're really in the middle of transforming now, because honestly, Chris, for the last 5 years, the message to Damco employees is, we're a separate company, everything is separate, everything is autonomous, we need to stand on our own legs. And now we have to pivot from that and say, actually, the new direction and the new strategy is that we want to be an integrator of container logistics, and we want to cooperate more closely and leverage the scale and the synergy of the parent company. And so it's a real mind shift for people who've kind of been told one thing for 5 or 6 years, and then all of a sudden you almost tell them the complete opposite.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But actually,
the uncertainty of people.
It creates a kind of, hey, are you sure? But actually, what it really shows me, the resilience of people, well, certainly in our organization, but I think people generally, and the willingness of people to embrace change. That if you really articulate, you know, a clear vision and a clear reason for the changes, and outline a well-structured change management plan, that actually you can really change people's minds. And as a result, you know, what I really believe as of now is our people do feel really positive about the role that they have to play within the Maersk group overall now.
So what steps did you take to deliver that message to the team? What practical steps did you take?
Well, it's really, I frame it in terms of align, connect, and develop, right? And actually the first and most critical thing was aligning. And so we took a lot of steps to make sure that the 11,000 people in Damco were really aligned around their objectives and what they should be working on, and ensuring that people's individual work cascades up to the broader company strategy, right? We did have perhaps some issues in the past of different functions, different geographies, really not being aligned and not working together. And actually, as a shipping and logistics company, for every container, there's an origin and a destination. So there's never only one country in the transaction. You always have to be collaborating with your peers. So we spent a huge amount of time aligning the organization so that we all knew what the end goal was, what the vision was, what the strategy was. And honestly, clearly the most obvious way to do that is for the leaders themselves to be visible. So we have a global leadership team at Damco, which consists of 11 people. And honestly, the most effective cascading of that alignment is when those 11, which includes me, goes out into our markets, into what we call the areas, and cascades that message, shares the message with employees around what we're aligning around. So align, then connect is the next one, which is really ensuring that we connect individuals to the company and ensuring that our managers have the skills to manage their people more successfully. So we launched a more consistent management skills program over the last year, and that's been very effective at ensuring that our managers can actually deploy the right messages and get the best out of their people. And then the third then is develop, which is really ensuring that our talent development is consistent with the business journey that we're on. And I think that when you really know you have when you cracked talent development is when you've got your succession planning working. And we're not there yet. So we think about talent development, it's assessment, development, and then succession. Actually, the succession part is always the hardest, and particularly in a business that's transforming, because the roles are changing, the structure is changing. And so it's actually very difficult to run a succession plan in an environment that's constantly changing.
Yeah.
But that's the task that we've set ourselves, and we are making good progress on it.
Yeah. So looking back then, for other leaders that are going through these type of transformations, what are the things that they should be thinking about?
I mean, I would say, honestly, number one is align. There's nothing more for me that works better than real consistency of message and making sure that your activities are connected with your messages.
How do you do that then? So with so many managers, line managers in the business, is it bringing them all into a meeting room? Is it, how are you conveying the message down the line? Because I think the communication piece is so difficult. In organizations, how have you managed that barrier?
Really, really good. Good question. Well, I think the first thing actually was that we as a leadership team needed to spend just a really significant amount of time ensuring that we were as a leadership team all aligned. And because actually that was the core thing we were hearing from our organization was the head of finance says one thing and the head of commercial says a different thing. How do I know?
It makes it even worse.
Yeah. And so we really did. That was probably to create an effective leadership team was actually the first part of it. And so actually we really didn't really share anything out with the broader organization until we'd really locked ourselves in a room as a leadership team for long enough so that we were really all aligned to a consistent message. We have a leadership team that is dispersed all around the world, but we realized that it was an investment in ourselves to basically meet 7 times a year during 2016. So our leaders were constantly on a plane back to The Hague in order to attend the global leadership team meetings. But we needed to do that because we needed to spend enough time together to really come together around what is an aligned view of the strategy, the cultural transformation, the operating system transformation, and the overall journey that we're moving towards. So we did that, and then there's a saying. Apparently, it's a Danish saying that you wash the stairs from the top, and that's
you
really
wash the stairs from the top. I've never heard that one before. It makes sense though. It's good analogy.
It makes sense, right? If you're going to wash the stairs,
yeah.
So really just showed the importance of cascading, and so we really broke our organization up into multiple layers, and we then physically flew our kind of top 150 people into Europe and locked them in a room until hopefully they were then aligned to the journey. And then we enabled various ways for them to cascade that strategy out into the organization.
Yeah.
So we building capability of managers so that they realize that their job is not just to manage their current business, but really to help the organization transform is a critical task that we set ourselves, and really helping our managers understand that spreading the right message, aligning their organization, transforming the organization, that's not something you do on the side. That is a core part of your role as a leader and as a
And it's not
manager
spoken
within
about
the
enough. Do you
business.
think that's right? Yeah, no, it's not something that comes up though, is it? You know, if you look at a job
Yeah,
spec, if you look at a
you're
job
right.
spec of any leader, none of it talks about, you know, conveying the company message or the why of the organization.
Yeah.
Why is that not included?
Well, I mean, it's a great point.
Only in
I mean,
times of change do I hear it happening, right? Only in times of change or transition, all of a sudden this is seen as a responsibility of the leaders, when that should
Yeah.
be an ongoing, every day. There should be strengthening that message. Do you think
Yeah,
that's
but
right?
it's interesting. I mean, I worked at Procter and Gamble for 17 years, and that is a great organization. And they, right from day one, when you become a manager, they say you have two roles: you build and sustain the business, and you build and sustain the organization. And actually, that's always stuck with me. And you realize that as a manager and as a leader, if you just think that delivering the current business and running your team to do what's needed today, if you think that's sufficient, then you're sadly mistaken. But I do still talk to sometimes some managers, even in my own organization and in other companies, who, when often I ask them, "Oh, what do you like about HR?" And they say, "Well, I really like HR because they lets me focus on my job of running the business, and the HR people can come in and help build the organization."
That's the problem.
And that is the problem, because we shouldn't hear that. We shouldn't allow that from managers. And I do then hopefully put managers back on the spot and say, no, you do. You've got two roles. You build the business and you build the organization, and both are really critical.
Yeah. One of the questions I wanted to ask you is, I sent out an email a few days ago saying to the leaders, you know, our members, you know, what's one question that you ask yourself but you haven't asked anyone else? And one of the questions that came back from loads of the members, and I'm interested to get your thoughts on this, is how do you hold your leaders accountable? You know, that is a question that come up quite often, and it kept coming up and up. And I was like, oh wow, okay, there's a trend here. Many people keep sending me the message of how do you actually, you know, how do HR leaders hold their leadership team and their managers accountable?
Yeah, no, it is a really it's a great question. I mean, in my view, you know, my job with managers is, you know, with the line managers that I support and the business leaders that I support, it's support and challenge, right? You need to be high support and high challenge. And actually,
it's not telling them what to do, is it? No, yeah.
Yeah, but there's some HR leaders that are just high support, and my job is to do whatever the manager wants. And you've got others that are high challenge. My job is to, you know, be the policeman and to tell you that you're not doing the right thing, right? Actually, the sweet spot is when you're challenging managers and supporting them at the same time. And I actually think the accountability can come if you've shown throughout the year that you're really willing to support your managers when they need support. You've then earned the right to challenge them when they need to be challenged, right? And I think from an accountability point of view, you know, managers do need to be accountable for the results that they deliver, and it is my job as the HR person sometimes to be the, you know, somewhat objective observer, to be able to put people on the spot and say, look, quite simply, you haven't, you know, you or your organization hasn't delivered the results that you promised, and, you know, your leadership has been one of the contributing elements as to why it hasn't delivered, and here's how I can support you to improve and ensure that next year we do deliver the results. So it's the mix of challenge and support, in my view, is the sweet spot for driving accountability.
Yeah, I can understand why it's a challenge, though. It must be very challenging for you guys, especially when you're talking about the C-level, having to challenge. Sure. I can only imagine being in that room, and it is a fundamental part of your role, and it's not something that's spoken about enough, actually. In all of the episodes I've actually had, no one's mentioned it. But but deep down, these are the type of questions that, how do I actually challenge my leaders? How do I hold them accountable? It's a very important part of the role, I think.
Sure.
I think what you said in terms of the balance, that I think for me, that was what I had in mind. So it's great to hear you say that. And I think that will help others out there. So thanks for sharing that.
Sure.
What HR skills do you feel, the HR profession, we don't want to bang on about it because everyone's talking about it. We all know it's changed dramatically over the last 5 to 10 years and moved from more administrative to more strategic. It's a conversation that's been going on for a while now. But in your experience, what skills do you think would be more important in the future for a HR leader?
Yeah, I think for me, the thing that's really popping on our radar screen is around building high performance teams. I think that as work evolves, what we know is there'll be, frankly, more collaboration, different types of collaboration, combination of remote collaboration versus face-to-face and everything like that. And there's just so much data that says that an effective team, an effective leadership team, but also effective management teams are, the effectiveness of that team correlates so highly with the success of the business. And so actually I am a real believer that a core part of the best HR managers toolbox is that they can help build that effective team. Whether that's tools, things like, whether it's, what are they called? Things like Hogan and Myers-Briggs and DISC and all the various different analysis tools that are out there, or whether it's some of the work that a lot of scholars have done around conflict and how to use conflict in a way to increase performance. I see that as my job. And so that's the role that I play on the leadership team for Damco. And it's the role that the folks who work with me on HR that they typically play within their own leadership teams. So, I am a believer in kind of internally facilitated team effectiveness. I know there's a view that says you should bring outside objective observers into a team, but I actually believe that a good and highly effective team should learn how to facilitate itself. And particularly if the HR person is skilled enough, then they should be able to do that work themselves and to leverage tools and techniques to kind of get the fish on the table of what the real issues are that are holding the team back, and ensure that the team has set a key path forward. So I know that's probably a little bit specific, but it's really on my mind now around what we're trying to build, and I see that as being a more important part of HR leaders' toolbox. Sometimes when I recruit people, they say, hey, I know a good consultant who I would bring in. And it's like, well, okay, sure, but would you do it yourself? Oh, no, I don't really see that as my role. And I guess in my view, I do see it. I see building high-performing teams as a core role for HR as it evolves.
Yeah, and you're right. Most people are now, I think, almost too much to organizations are just bringing outside of guidance always in, rather than pushing the envelope for themselves and challenge. Because I think in the process of actually, for example, when you brought the team in the meeting to go through that, I think just in the actual process of talking about it and asking those questions to the team and to each other, you automatically start to grow your own thinking, your own ability. And if you just bring someone in and you're just sitting in a room consuming the content or from someone else, very little, we all know from research that very little actually goes in and stays in there. Most of the time. Whereas when you're challenging yourself and you're having to learn and yourself, you remember it. You remember how to do it, and you push the envelope. So I completely agree with you now.
Sure.
I think too many organizations are taking I feel like it's a bit of an easy route to bring the outside in, but it's still very costly as well to do so.
Absolutely.
And you don't really also, and I'm sure there's a cultural element of team bonding between the teams in terms of building these capabilities with each other as well.
Absolutely agree. And you realize that the team is together and running the business day to day. Whereas if you say, we're going to bring in an external consultant every 6 months to help,
it almost sounds like we can't do the job.
180 days in between, right? So
it's almost like saying you guys can't do the job, so we're going to bring in a consultant every few months just to make sure you guys are actually capable.
So I apologize to any consultants listening to this podcast. We do still value what consultants
No, of
bring,
course there's value there.
In a different way.
Not just, there's definitely value there, but not every single time we have a challenge.
Sure.
We need to bring in some outside advice. From a personal point of view, then, how do you make sure that you keep yourself up to date and, you know, for your own learning and make sure that you're always aware of the latest, you know, challenges and of the evolution of HR, really, and the whole transformation it's going through right now?
Yeah, and it's a great question. And actually, honestly, as you get to the head of HR role, it can sometimes be a bit difficult, right? Because you look up and there's no one else that you can look up to, at least within Damco.
Yeah.
I am lucky that Damco is part of the Merce group. And so, you know, I have my peers at Merce Line and at APM Terminals, and I spend a lot of time sparring with them. So, but if you do have the advantage of working with great professionals, particularly if you're part of a conglomerate, then it's a real advantage. But honestly, Chris, I think there's so much material available now these days that wasn't previously. Honestly, I mean, I watch YouTube videos, I listen to podcasts, I read a lot of articles, and, you know, there's so many great articles that are just linked to on LinkedIn, right? That actually I find that it is important to just invest some time looking through and just seeing what's out there, and keeping yourself up to date in that way. So it's, I mean, really, there is no excuse, I think, for
it's a simple answer, right?
Today. Open. I mean, everyone's got a supercomputer telephone in their pocket, and so honestly, rather than, you know, looking up Twitter and Facebook, you just got to sometimes just spend a bit of time on familiarizing yourself with what's the latest in the HR profession.
Yeah, there's no longer a monopoly on information. And that, no. I can only imagine living many years ago, before we had Google and before we had, it seems like it's crazy to think about, of not having that opportunity. Now you can literally just type in exactly what you want into a search engine and get the exact response. You have to just be willing to put in the time, to put in the hours to do it, and obviously be willing to execute it and act upon what you've found. I think there's a problem now where there's too much information. It's something people are talking. You know, if you try and look up, you know, I don't know, what's the best HR technology platform CRM to use in the business, you're going to be pretty stressed out after you read the first few articles, because you're going to be like, there's too much information here.
Yeah, exactly. They all contradict each other. You're right.
Yeah. I think that's one problem. I think because that's one of the feedbacks I get from a lot of the members. There's so many different resources now, but when you've got things like LinkedIn, which most of the things that you read, there's a lot on there that is practitioner driven. So in the past, you wouldn't be able to get the practitioner perspective. It would always be, you know, a Deloitte post or a KPMG report, or, you know, now you can actually go online and see your exact peer in another role talking about that particular challenge or that particular topic, and you're like, okay, I can relate to that. I
agree. I think that's fantastic. It's a huge benefit.
Yeah, and also this is how we came across each other, right? So it's just connecting people all over the world. In terms of the leadership side, of course, the most successful HR leaders are the ones that are able to engage the leadership internally and convey and tell your story with the rest of the business. What advice would you give to other young HR managers that are on their journey, that are going to now be, you know, sitting in the boardroom, or, you know, in a room with a CEO? Looking back, what advice do you think would really help them?
Sure. No, it's a great question. I mean, I like the old the E model of leadership, that envision, engage, energize, enable, and if I really look back at the distinction between really great leaders and other people who are just good managers, honestly, it's the envisioning that is usually the part that separates. And when I talk about envisioning, it's really around looking at the situation and really setting a vision for what's possible, for what can be achieved, and really linking that, your vision for your project or your department or your country or whatever, in with the broader vision of the organization that you're working in. So I think you're absolutely right that a lot of young leaders will just try and get straight into the, let's engage with people and let's try and execute and that's great. But it's like, actually the best ones really do step back and take that time to say, really, what is the vision? What am I really, really trying to achieve here? What is the best contribution that I can make? How can I link that vision with the vision of the company? And it's the leaders who've done that end up being able to then use that to engage and to enable their organizations to be effective.
Mm-hmm. No, I completely agree with you. Sometimes you can get a bit carried away and run into too many areas rather than actually focusing on, what, as you said, exactly what you said, where I can have the biggest impact and how can I align myself to the business and the objectives.
Absolutely. And I mean, our company, Damco as part and the Mercer company generally, we are a very action-oriented, execution-driven company. And it's partly because you're in transport, right? The truck leaves or the plane leaves or the boat leaves. And if your cargo's not on it, then it's not on it, right? So we're extreme bias to action and execution. And that is one of the wonderful things about our company, a real accountability and a real bias towards action. But sometimes, people are so excited to just start driving and executing that they don't really take the step back and saying, really, what am I trying to achieve here? What's the end result of this? And is my plan the best way to achieve that?
Amazing. And on that point end of the business, where do you see the biggest opportunity for improvement within Damco?
Well, I think for us, we are a supply chain and logistics business. So our customers are typically large retailers, large clothing manufacturers, technology companies who look to us to help them manage and optimize their supply chain. And we are certainly within the verticals that we play, particularly in retail and lifestyle, we're very close to we're either the market leader or close to being the market leader, depending on how you measure the market. But our really the task for us is to really leverage technology to help customers improve their supply chain. Customers, they want better visibility, they want better tracking, they want better forecasting for their inventory within their supply chain, and we have the tools that can help them to do that. And so, we are a classic combination of a boots on the ground business. We run warehouses and we stuff containers in Vietnam, and at the same time, we're a technology company where customers look to us for overall end-to-end visibility of their supply chain. And so, really, the challenge for us is to keep doing what we're doing well on call it the more physical elements of the supply chain, and then turning the information that we have around our customers' inventory, turning that into insights that our customers can use to better optimize their supply chain. And that's really the core element for us. We call it supply chain solutions. And that's what our customers are looking for from us.
Yeah. Is that had a big impact? And I've seen that transformation as well, right? From going from a purely transport logistics organization to innovating and also having a big technology side. Is that massively, how have you prepared in the HR department for that? Have you built an entirely new talent strategy around technology?
Yeah, and honestly, I must say we struggle a little bit with this because it took us a while to get our arms around the fact that some digital talent, don't want to have the kind of career path that has traditionally appealed to people who want to work in logistics.
That's what I was going to say. So, they're not really thinking, "Oh, I'm a talent. I'm a technical talented person." They may not be thinking, "I want to go into supply chain logistics industry."
Exactly. Right. But the interesting thing is, right, the impact that you can have as an IT person, as someone who's working on artificial intelligence or robotics or anything like that, and the impact that you can have in in a supply chain company is actually often more than you can have.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Sitting in an office.
Scale as well.
Yeah, because so we really make stuff happen, and we've been able to leverage our digital talent. So we've launched a pure play digital forwarder, which we call Twill. So twilllogistics.com is the website as a little plug, and the idea of to make forwarding as easy as hotels.com or Uber or anything like that. And so we've realized that for that talent, we're actually ring fencing that group. They work in a different office that's across the road from our main headquarters. You know, their dress code is different.
Yeah.
They have the bean bags and the
employee experience has to be quite different. And
exactly. The employee experience is different. The culture is a little bit different. And so that's actually taken us a little while to get our head around. But actually, we're realizing that it's having huge benefits to us in terms of the type of people that we can attract. But also, it's helped us to challenge a little bit the paradigms that we have within our organization. We are a little bit traditional in some of our the ways we think about work, and actually having this group of digital natives in Twill has really helped us to learn, hey, what might be possible if we even think about our own business and doing it differently. So it's just wonderful to have this inflection of talent in the ecosystem. And then finally on digital, we are again part of the Merce group, so we get to leverage some of the investments and the huge scale that the broader group is setting up, which includes a whole digital center in Bangalore, a global trade digitization center in New York City. So there's a range of investments that the company is making, or the conglomerate is making, and we're able to leverage off that.
Yeah. How are you ensuring then, it's a bit of a more technical question, I'm not sure if you could answer, but how are you ensuring that your brand is on their radar, and you're seen as an organization, as an attractive organization for that type of talent to work for?
Yeah, honestly, it's hard because, as a B2B business, we're not as visible as Expedia or Bookings.com or Uber or anything like that. So it is hard. So
is it directly reaching out to these people?
Yeah, we do. We use LinkedIn a lot, and that's been we've learned, I think, how to use LinkedIn in order to gain access to talent. But honestly, I must say we've spent more money with recruiting agencies than we would have ideally liked, because sometimes you have to when you want specialist talent. If you're really looking for special digital talent, and again, our parent company in Copenhagen, in the Merce Group, has probably done even more of that, of really looking out and realizing where is this talent based, where can we find it, and being willing to start up a conversation with people who normally wouldn't think shipping and logistics as their career. But over time, I think people will see that the opportunities available in a company like ours are actually, in many ways, your impact can be really felt more obviously in a company like ours than in a pure play startup that might not be launching for 2 or 3 years and may never launch, right?
I agree.
That's some of the conversations I've had.
No, and you're impacting the potential to impact millions of people all over the world. Because that's those are the people that are receiving your products, right? The end customer of
exactly.
This. So the potential for someone like them in that role could be incredible. The reach,
and that's what.
Incredible.
That's what we have to say to people, right? We often, even in an interview, I would, if I was interviewing you now, I'd say, well, Chris, take your headphones off. Where do they come from? They were probably manufactured in China or somewhere else. How did they get from there, to you? Well, they came in a shipping container, and they came
forget about that,
through a supply chain,
through a warehouse,
everything that you're wearing, everything that I can see in your office there has most likely been on a shipping container at some point. And we are, as the Merce Group, we're the market leader in container shipping. And then in my part of the enterprise, which is Damco, we play a real role in keeping the supply chains of major customers moving forward, to ensure that you have those headphones available to you when you want them.
Yeah, but people take for granted, even like just yesterday when I ordered some more equipment for the office, and in 2 hours it was here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, that's just great. People they don't really know. People take for granted what actually takes
Absolutely. And
to make that happen. Now we expect it, right? We just expect, talking about employee experience. If people expect that type of speed now, don't they? In everything.
no, they absolutely do, and they also expect the cost, right? I mean, to ship a pair of running shoes from, say, Vietnam to here in the Netherlands, it's about 25 cents to ship. Like, if you equal out the cost of the whole supply chain, 25 cents to transport a pair of shoes from Asia to Europe. I mean, it's unbelievable how efficient global trade is, and how that then enables consumers all around the world to gain access to products at reasonable costs. And actually, our challenge, for us in Maersk and in Damco, we need to be better at telling that story. We need to be better at helping people understand that actually trade makes people's lives better. It creates employment opportunities for people all around the world, but it also creates consumption opportunities. And I talk about this a lot when I'm trying to recruit people, is to say that we really make a difference in terms of helping people get access to products that make their lives meaningfully better.
Yeah. You guys, have you done any sort of brand awareness, like video campaigns, stuff like that you put out on social, on video wise?
Yeah, we do. I mean, I think we've got over 100,000 followers on our LinkedIn page. But it's something we're getting more into.
I think you guys should, especially with a digital office. If you did a few videos, it not sort of from their perspective, somebody talent that you already have, and that's going to attract so many more other leaders in the digital space than any type of investment in recruitment companies, because hearing from their peers that are living it, breathing it, in doing it, some of the most successful companies I'm working with at the moment, I know they're all their entire employment strategies around video now. So whenever they're putting out a job spec, they'll actually just put out a video from the person doing the job in the organization talking about the role. So rather than talking about here's a job spec, which is just completely one-dimensional, and in most cases never actually works out being what the job spec is. In most cases, just hear from one of the employees doing the role and saying, if this is interesting to you, then come and join us. You get to see the office environment, you get to see a bit of the energy, and it comes across real. And the impact I've seen on some of the organizations I'm working with has been amazing. And I think with a story like what you guys have, that could be a very interesting way for you to the message that you've conveyed to me today it was great. And I think if you can do that and share it, for example, on LinkedIn with millions of people, right? And it's not costly to do that.
I think it's fantastic.
I should definitely do that.
Great food for thought, Chris.
For your recruitment team, they'll do wonders. It really would do wonders for you guys. Just random. Well, that leads us quite nicely onto the quick fire round, where I'm going to ask you 5 questions. And you have no longer than 30 seconds to give us some amazing...
Okay, so are you going to press the buzzer if I go over 30 seconds?
No, it's all right. I'll let you off. What was the number one thing that was holding you back from becoming a senior HR leader?
Number one thing that was holding me back probably was mindset of challenge and support, of realizing that the best leaders challenge and support, and I struggle to kind of find the sweet spot between being a challenging business partner and being a supportive business partner.
Great. What's the best piece of business advice that you've ever received?
Well, I think best piece of business advice is it's a journey, not a destination, and the reason that's a good life advice, but it's also good business advice, is to realize that organizations and businesses will be in a state of constant transformation. There will never be an end state for any organization. It will always be evolving.
Great advice.
We need to plan our business around that, as well as good life advice as well.
Yeah. Well, if you're in HR and you don't like change, then you're in the wrong job.
Exactly.
What's one book that you'd recommend to our audience, and why?
I love the John Kotter Leading Change book, the basic 8 steps of change management. It's 30 years old, but it stands the test of time. So John Kotter Leading Change.
What is it that you took away from that?
What's that? Oh, I took away really the 8-step. He articulates the model of change management. It's the 8 steps, starting with the burning platform and moving through. So it's just a very structured way of understanding, of helping people think about how to plan their change efforts. I love the structure, and the model is simple and able to be applied for huge, big transformation efforts, as well as, honestly, even small transformation efforts. My friend used the Cotter model to give up smoking.
Oh, really?
He followed through the 8 steps of the Cotter model, and it worked well for him.
Great. It was and it depends. Different things work for different people. So if he's found a way to apply that and hold himself accountable, then it works. Could you share one internet resource? What internet resources do you use to sort of stay productive and keep up to date with current events?
Yeah, I mean, I subscribe to the New York Times on my iPad, and so I read that, and I read The Economist. Both are great. Honestly, great articles, great publications to really give you the right breadth of around what's happening in the world. And then I think in terms of HR internet resources, probably the BCG, Boston Consulting Group resources, in my view, are probably the best. Great case studies, great examples and tools there. So I they often have really, really relevant material for HR leaders there. So Boston Consulting Group.
Fantastic. What's one thing about your business that you're most excited about?
What I'm most excited about our business is that we are transforming, and that we're really turning from a pretty traditional industrial company into a real technology company. And I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, I'm excited for you. No, genuinely, I love it. I love the digital piece in all the businesses now. I think every company in the world is going through this digital transformation, and I'm actually loving to be on the outside looking in is amazing. Well, you've been an amazing guest. I really appreciate you taking the time to join us.
Absolutely. Thanks very much, Chris.
No problem. If there's one piece of guidance that you can give to other HR leaders out there that are on their journey, what would that be? I'm
going to come back to, it's a journey, it's not a destination, right? It's think about it for your career, for your company, for your time in HR, for the culture of the company, just of always realizing that we will never get to the end, and transformation is constant. And as a result, as a HR leader, be willing to enjoy the journey rather than always thinking how far away you are from the destination, because actually the destination will never arrive.
Fantastic. Well, look, guys, make sure you head over to hrdleaders.com. There you'll find all of the show notes on the episode, everything we've been talking about. Pete, thanks again. I really appreciate you taking the time out to join us and
absolutely,
and
Chris,
be on the show. No problem. And I look forward to speaking to you soon. All the best until then.
Thank you.